Greetings and welcome. We're getting all set up here. I hope you guys can hear me well. Um, Figured I would do five things. We're going to do five things. Going to talk about what we're in it for as musicians, as artists, as songwriters, as producers. I want to discuss something that's kind of a global um, thing that we all face as musicians. So we'll break it down to five things. The first thing I want to talk about is like basically there's five reasons why we're going to create music or be a part of that process. And I'm just going to dive into a couple here. Obviously, the first reason we create music because of our own personal enjoyment. Like I just think it's fun and often a hilarious experience um, to just make stuff up. It's fun to create something from nothing or to latch onto something and see how far it goes. That doesn't always get you anywhere in terms of communicating with people, and it's not always a valid thing to spend time or money on, though it's better than some other hobbies I can think of. Obviously, we enjoy the process for the sake of the process sometimes. And obviously collaborating is a big part of that too. So really really like to collaborate with others, and that's just a form of communication that is part of being a musician. It's that communicating, and that brings me to the next thing. It's like um communicating with others. Welcome, I hope you can hear me well. I'm setting this up from my computer, so um obviously we do this music to communicate with others. We're trying to reach an audience. We're trying to connect with people, and we're trying to share our feelings, and we're trying to convey an idea or a stance. So it could be a political thing, it could be, like an environmental thing, it could be anything that we feel strongly about that we want to convey through song. Because for a lot of us, that's like the purest means of communication is through lyrics, through music. You speak greater and more articulately with an instrument often than if you're like me, than you do in writing or um, just speaking. It's kind of tough to speak, to convey an idea and keep the thought rolling, but also to convince others of what you're talking about. Sup, Tony? Hope you can hear me well. Um, what are your thoughts so far? Take it, Tangerine Dream, Crochet Part 2. I'll check that out. I'm familiar with Tangerine Dream. So why do you do it, Tony, since you're here? Um, Thanks. Why do you do it? Give me a couple reasons why you're in it as a musician. 'Cause, I'm just curious about others as well. I kind of broke it down to five reasons. Was going over the second one, which was to communicate with others, so to convey an idea or stance, or to just share empathy, you know. Um, Obviously, the other thing is going to be um, the third reason we're going to do is like to be a hobby or just for fun. And that's self-explanatory. I mean, you're either doing it because you're a collector, you like to just collect instruments and gear and things like that, or um, being a collector, it's kind of a conversation piece, isn't it? It's like you just want to have nice things to share with people. People come over and they go, "Wow, that's really nice," and they're really impressed. And some people do it for that. I personally don't think that's the way to go, but you know, that's the one of the reasons, obviously, that it is done like that. You know, it's some people do it for a means of communication, um, to gather a nice collection, obviously. Sorry, I've a bit distracted. To gather a nice collection of things, it's fun. But that can take a backseat to the creativity. But not everybody is a creative. Um, so it's a social hobby when you're a collector. You do it because you want to, share your collection and say, well, this I got for a great price. And, I totally got a good deal on this. And, oh, this is really nice. I spent a lot of money on this. Or, there's a lot of those kind of people that do that thing too. And that's well and good. Um, but why does that, how does that coincide with the artist's collective? That's an interesting kind of juxtaposition. You have the same tools, that's what instruments and things, that's all they are. They're just tools to do the job. And you have some people who are very particular about their tools. Um, what kind of Tony says, what type of musicians' jobs are the most sustainable in terms of making a living? Um, Nowadays, a lot of musicians are making a living by teaching, or they're making a living by creating content. Um, Very few musicians are making a living off of their own music. Oh, hi, mom. um, Very few musicians are making a living doing music. If you're doing like tech work and stuff, so teaching is a sustainable teaching is a sustainable thing that some people do, but that's a lifestyle too. And not every musician has that kind of personality. Some do the tech thing, some buy and sell, but that a lot of buying and selling is usually a side hustle. Yeah, public school teachers. Um, that but you have to get at least, I think, at least a bachelor's to do that. And there are educated musicians for sure. But a lot of those educated musicians end up doing things like teaching jobs. Um, some, I mean, the band thing is interesting, and we'll get to that. So the next, it's like, you know, when you're we'll jump to the next thing, which is basically to make a living or to become famous. Like that's why some people do it. I mean, part of the reason why I was excited about getting into the musician thing was because it was the prospect of making a living doing it and possibly having everybody know me and know my music, and that was part of the excitement of that. Tony also says music is honestly a thing where super talented people are amazing people have had a hard time sustaining themselves. I've seen one example would be Corellia, the band whose Kickstarter fell through. Yeah, of course, it's a challenge in today's market to um, make a living doing it because most people aren't paying for music. At best, they're paying for streaming services, and the way the streaming services work is that you know your streams trickle downs from all the big, you know, $1 billion or a billion count stream. Those guys get the revenue, and then you get whatever trickles down from there. I mean, I literally see pennies for my Spotify streaming, and Spotify is not an avenue of making a sustainable living. Where at one point, some people could hustle and sell CDs. I mean, I have tapes, and those tapes still haven't sold. Um, and I knew I wasn't really gonna make a return on those. I did it mostly for myself, but, that was not an investment that really went anywhere. It was kind of a ended up kind of being um, an ego project. Tony also says, people who, Yeah, I mean, about the donations and people, 25,000 US dollars isn't that much in California. Um, do I travel locally or internationally as a musician? No. I have not traveled yet. Not for my music thing. I do it pretty much remotely at this point. I work on my own projects and I do videos about those projects. And I'm trying to. It's challenge to keep up with that because you can't just it takes time to construct an album, but it also takes a lot of time to script a video and to tell a narrative and to put that together. It's just they go hand in hand for what I do anymore. I'm not the type of musician that has a live thing, but and we'll get to the live thing too. Um, but some musicians, like if you're doing it to make money and make a living to become a musician, obviously this is not an environment where you can just go out and be a band and make a living. Like at best you're good to break even. Like you're paying for your flights. There's not unless you're a high profile artist that's already well established, record companies aren't taking chances on a nobody like they may have at one time. What the record companies are doing is giving people who are already established a boost, and really all that boost is just going, all right, we're going to promote you here, here, and here because we're the key holders. There's three major labels. There's three major companies that basically own all the rights to all of the record labels, save for some indie stuff. Like I'm just one of those little tiny indie things that goes under the radar because I'm not um supported by those one of those three companies like Sony and Warner. um and it's not necessary to break through there. A lot of people like myself can support themselves by creating YouTube content, for example, but a lot of that is either blog or lifestyle, or you're instructional and teaching people like how, or like tutorial based. And I kind of mix a bit of that. Um, but a lot of that has to do with just finding a need like, hey, I am well knowledgeable about this, and people value that, and the way they can get it for free is YouTube. But the bonus is the ad revenue can maybe the ad revenue and the support from the fans can eventually make you become a sustainable lifestyle that way. And personally, I aim to at least get to that point so I can focus on my own thing. But a lot of musicians and bands, they have day jobs and stuff. Tony continues with, does family support you? That's a big gift to have, parents supporting. Yeah. Well, there's love and support in a lot of directions, and you can't really fully do what you do without, it takes a team for sure. But it's kind of you are um, kind of alone in your endeavors unless you're in a band, but that can create a different challenging dynamic. Um, Tour writers on the Smoking Gun shows that big bands ask for by venues. It's a perfect time to be indie, mini tools. Yeah. Um, as I'm saying, it's like, when I was young, at first getting into the guitar, it was still, it was dying, but it was still valid enough to um, want to do the old school, like you get a rock band together and you become discovered by some A&R guy or something like that. Like that dream, if you will, is just it's that it doesn't work like that anymore. You have to have a social media presence and a minimum of 50,000 followers or whatever it is that won't even they won't even pay any mind to you if but it's not about the big labels anymore. It's about somebody establishing themselves. And we do, in this environment we do have a lot of um we do have a lot of tools at our disposal to communicate with others, so there is that benefit. But at the same time, there's so much white noise because everybody's kind of doing it, and you're competing not only against like the great music that's, the well established stuff that's like the Beatles and like Led Zeppelin or all those other bands that are like have already um like become such a big part of our collective conscious, but you're also competing against very talented people, very creative people. I mean, people that have beautiful footage and people that have a team of others, and you look at their lifestyle and it's gorgeous, and they play really well, like really pretty girls like to shred, and that's what you're competing with in terms of people's attention, because we're so scroll based now, and it just takes a few seconds for someone to move to the next thing because there's always something else. It's not just like, okay, what's new? It's like as long as you can sit there and scroll, you're going to be finding something new. Unless you stop and search for something specific, then the algorithms surround that. But the search terms are really like, they support certain things. So certain videos are going to creep up higher because maybe they have, you know, they create more ad revenue or something. The algorithms like support that. So it's kind of a weird double-edged sword. And learning to navigate that, that's kind of where I'm at. It's like, well, how you can't bank on just having one viral thing and that's it. You have to like be consistent. That's the only thing I know. And it's harder than it sounds to just do consistent something repetitive and consistently. Like you have to pick one thing, and you can do 10 videos that are not good. Like look at the Angry Video Game Nerd, for example. I know he's not a musician, but in terms of a content creator, his first videos were just s- basically no better than this live stream right now, where it's just a single camera and he's just ranting. And eventually got into big productions and did it consistently enough that it developed a fan base, and search engines supported that, and so it perpetuated. And the only way to do that is to be consistent, and that's all I know. um, but it is a great time to be indie because you can do it yourself, but you just have to keep doing it. But why are we doing it? It's like, are we doing it to get that viral video? Like some people, sure. But why do we want that viral video? Is what is validating about the viral video. It's like, oh wow, this is a spectacle. Do you want to be a spectacle? I guess some musicians do. They want to be envied. They want to be looked up to. They want to be um, discovered. They want to be shared. I mean, we all want that to some degree. We want to be influential or insightful, and we want to maybe create change where we feel it needs to be. When I was in my early musicianship, um, I felt that I had something so strong to say that I had to say it. Like my album was a statement that the world needed to hear. It was very important, and it turns out it just like it wasn't necessarily the case, but I had it in my head. And sometimes you need that like drive in order to finish a project, and that's part of the drive that was needed, but it was kind of for the wrong reason. But it motivated me enough to finish a project. We obviously want to do it because we want to create something that's thanks, Tony. Right on. I appreciate that. Um, we also do it because we want to create something that'll outlive us. I mean, some of us do. We all dream of writing the songs or whatever that's going to transcend culture or transcend our lives at best and be shared. Thanks. Have a good night, Tony. Thanks again, man. That's great. I appreciate it. Um, and that's all well and good in terms of wanting to do it to become something that's known in the consciousness. But culture is an interesting thing, and right now, I think it's a very um, it's a very heated subject about culture and appropriation and terminology and um, being inclusive. And it's kind of like we need it now more than ever, but now is like not the time. So it's really weird. It's you can't, especially if you're a white person like me, you can't just go out and talk about certain things because like it doesn't really apply to you, does it? We do as musicians do it because we want to incite some kind of change, don't we? We want to create something that's going to maybe inform others to or inspire others to do better or to you know open their minds to something. I know that a lot of what I've done at one time was s- consciously like trying to do that. Um, but the segue into the next section, which part of the other reason we would do it is healing or therapeutic reasons. Um, music is like therapy for a lot of us. Writing a song could just take a feeling and let it out. It's a purge. It's a release. It's a it's a self medication. To do that, and it is. I think songwriting is a great source of therapy. You can let aggression out. You can let your sadness out. You can let any emotion out. And sometimes it doesn't always work. Sometimes you're just too frustrated, and when you're trying to play something and it's not coming out right, it frustrates you even more. Um, but it is there, like music is there to provide a release, not only for ourselves, but hopefully we hope to release others. It's providing a release for tension, because music is all about tension and release. And the most beautiful music has a lot of tension and release. And it is any great story really does. And that's what we do as songwriters, isn't it? It's a form of storytelling. Um, and that's how a lot of minstrels and whatnot, didn't they go to other places and sing songs, and that would be a way that they would say, hey, this is what it's like over here, or I experienced this over here and I came back here and this is what I experienced. And they're telling a story, they're sharing an experience. And that certainly is what we ultimately want to do with music. um, it is to provide a release of emotion. You go to a rave because you want to just have that energy explosion and to just let out all that pent up energy, and it's to relieve things like pain too. Because music, I was watching that Beatles documentary, and there's that part where Paul McCartney's like, almost he's on the verge of a breakdown because the Beatles are like not showing up for this um, rehearsal sessions. So he's thinking it's over, and you can just see him, and he's sitting there like humming, like singing, and like you can tell it's just like he's like it's like you're caressing. He's like using it as a form of to soothe himself. So I thought that was fascinating because it probably harkens back to like when he was a child and maybe his mother did that, or his parents or grandmother or someone may have done that to him when he was growing up. So it was how he learned to deal with like discomfort and pain or emotion, and it shows in his songwriting. Obviously, it is a way to writing music anyway. It's a way to deal with and process emotions or thoughts that are we can't fully grasp, but the mood or the emotion of the music puts it in a context. Like the chord progression or the melody or a combination of things really creates the context, and the mood, and the lyrics support it, or at best they should. But that is why one reason we're in it for. uh Maybe not, not everybody, these don't apply to everybody. um but ultimately we want to communicate with others. We want to reach an audience. We want to share our feelings and convey an idea or stance or create empathy. um I think I've covered all five. I'll just summarize. So we do it for our own personal enjoyment. Um, because it's fun to create and enjoy the process, and we love collaborating with others and communicating with others. Um, it's a personal enjoyment because, for me anyway, because it's cathartic and expressive and fun, and you get to experiment and you get to put things into a place where you wouldn't normally, like you get to say things you don't get to say at work or in a family setting, or it's like you take things that are maybe an inappropriate thought over here, but if you put them in the context with, say, some music or something, then you can express that, and it's other people might latch on and go, yes, somebody's saying that. It's been a while personally since I've heard new music that's like, oh, thank you, they're saying it, they're doing it. And I don't know if I'm out of touch on that or what, but I think that's a big reason why we do it. It's because we want to say, as an artist, you want to say the things that might be uncomfortable to say, that might not, um, it's like being a comedian, you're pushing buttons that are like, whoa, this is fresh. This is, but you're laughing at it. And that laughter or that music, creates like a cathartic release, and I think that's an amazing thing. And if we're not, as as we create music to do it for ourselves, it's like, when I'm creating a song for myself, I love those moments that the song reveals itself. So, like, if you have just a chord progression on a piano, and then you go to the bass guitar and you start creating different voicings, and then suddenly it gels, and then maybe like you start adding like a synth pad, and then it just opens up, and that feeling is just amazing. And that, to share that feeling, you want others to be like, yeah, like, and you want that nod of approval, or you want people to be like, whoa, what is this? Like, are you kidding me? Like, you want to, we do want to experience that. It sort of validates our creativity, especially if you're like myself and you do it, you know, mostly by yourself. Creating by yourself is great because you can just go to town. You don't have anybody saying, maybe that's not a good idea. You can just, so what if it's not a good idea? Like, I'm gonna do it anyway because I think it's fun or funny or whatever. Um, it's nice to have restraint, or nice to have somebody support, like, hey, no, this is a good idea. Because that's the thing that I miss about collaborating, is having someone go, keep that, because it's something you might not have thought to keep. Like, what, that lyric wasn't very good, and they're like, no, keep it. Oh, okay, fine, I'll keep it. And then later you're like, it is good. Sometimes you overthink it or second guess yourself, and sometimes it's nice to have someone just go, you know what, no, keep it, just roll with that. And I miss having that in collaborations, because I've collaborated with people in the past, and that's one of my favorite parts of collaborating. My other favorite part of collaborating is just when someone's, say, grooving on the drums and you're on an instrument, and then something, it just suddenly, just, you both lock in and realize you have something, and you just look over at each other, and it's just like, you just know, that is like the best part of collaborating, is that, like, unspoken, like, you don't even have to say anything, or maybe you just laugh, but like, you don't have to say anything, but you just know that's it, you know that's one of the big reasons we do it, isn't it? um it's that kind of communication. It is a primal kind of thing, to communicate. I mean, you could do it on a high art scale, or you can do it like, just on a very primal level too. And that's why music is fascinating, because it's not like oil paintings where it seems, there's obviously unsophisticated oil paintings, but even those are obviously like, well, you have to have an artistic mind to understand it. Whereas music, it could be very just, you know, basic and simple, and y- you can feel it. You don't have to go, oh, you have to have you have to have a very deep mind to understand it because it's like Rick and Morty, you know. um, I think I've covered quite a bit of why we're in it for as musicians. Anybody have anything to add or any stories to tell real quick? Um, I know I have a few, but I mean, it's those five things. We create it for our own personal enjoyment, obviously. We also do it for healing or therapeutic reasons. We do it to communicate with others. We do it as a hobby or just for fun, or we also do it for the potential to make a living or become famous with. And those are, I think, the major reasons that, I mean, that's what I broke it down to why we do it. And I wanted to do this because you forget what you're in it for anymore sometimes, and it's hard to remember what you're in it for anymore. It's hard to ground yourself and go, okay, what is my task? What am I trying to accomplish? Like, what is the next goal? What is the next step? And we often lose sight of that. um I could do another video where I clean this all up, but I just wanted to do a live stream to be off the cuff and kind of just have a bit of a conversation to express some of that. But thanks for watching, everybody. Have a good night, and thanks again, and leave a comment if you have questions or anything. I'll be happy to stick around and answer those. Take care, guys.